mitzvos, lots of technical mitzvos, and there's so much to talk about there. However, there are huge differences of opinions over several things, and I'm not talking about the mitzvos now. The bookends of the beginning of, or the middle of last week's Parsha, the Aseret HaDibros, 10 Commandments, the story therein, and the end of this week's Parsha, where we have the famous Nase v'Nishma. And what is the issue? What is the debate? What is the problem? As in, when did all of this take place? Okay? So let's just set the scene very, very briefly. So in last week's Parshas Yisro, it says quite clearly, the first day of the third month, that's Sivan, they came to Har Sinai. It gives a chronological order that seems to be quite clear, right? Moshe Rabbeinu goes up to Shemayim, up the mountain. Give me a second. Why have I taken the smallest chumash here? Okay, so Moshe Rabbeinu goes up the mountain. That might be a better idea, yes, instead of moving page. Right, so there's quite a seemingly good chronological order as to what went on each day, right? They came, Hashem says, go tell the Jewish people, you're going to be you're going to be my people, and everything's good. Then Moshe goes down to the people, yeah, we're going to do it. Whatever Hashem says, we're going to do. Great. And Moshe goes back, tells Hashem what the Jewish people said. Then Hashem said, okay, now I'm going to give you 3 days notice, 3-day warning, don't touch a woman, don't do all this. Right? Then Moshe Rabbeinu goes down, tells them all, everything's fine. Then by Yom HaShlishi on the third day, again, what's third day? Third day of the month, third day of the warning. Again, difference of opinions. Comes the third days, well, not really difference of opinion, but 1 or 2 days out, and he goes up, and he gets the Aseret HaDibros. Okay, so far not too bad, not too controversial. Then after the Aseret HaDibros, Hashem all of a sudden now, Eila HaMishpatim. Ve'ela HaMishpatim. Okay, and we have all these laws. So when were these laws said? What are they saying? When is this? Is this in the middle of the Aseret HaDibros, right? Straight after the Aseret HaDibros? And then it gets even more confusing. Because after we've had all the mitzvahs of Parshas Mishpatim, then we come, Vel Moshe Amar Le Hashem. He said to Moshe, come up the mountain, you and Aaron, Nadav, Avihu, Sivim, Ziknei Yisrael. Then Moshe Rabbeinu makes a covenant with the Jewish people, makes sacrifices, splits the blood, sprinkles it on them. And they say this famous words, so when's this? If we're following the order, you've got Har Sinai, Matan Torah, then you've got Mishpatim, and then you've got this doing the sacrifices and doing the entering into a covenant, and then you've got the bris, and then you've got the sprinkling of the blood, and then you have Nasev and Nishma. That's what it would seem from the chronological order, correct? That's what it seems. However, it's not all as it seems. Why? Because Rashi, quoting obviously from the Gemara and the Medrash, whatever, says no. Nasev and Nishma was before Matan Torah, which makes a lot of sense to what we know, right? Because if you knew all the Ein HaMishpatim and all this sort of stuff, and then you said Nasev and Nishma afterwards, it's not so great saying Nasev and Nishma. I already know all the mitzvahs mainly, so what's a great thing? So what does Moshe say? What does... Rashi. Hold on. So this, he says, Rashi said, was on the 5th day of the Matan Torah. It's the 5th day. And therefore, really, all of this would have been before Matan Torah, right? This was on one of the days before. So you had Moshe Rabbeinu going up, you're going to be my Mamlechas Kohanim v'Go Kadosh. You're going to be my holy people. Then Moshe comes down, tells the people, yeah, we're going to accept Naseh. Goes back up. The Jews are ready to accept. It's going to be great. So Hashem says, okay, you're going to go down, and you're going to give me you're going to make this bris and stuff. So he comes down, makes the sacrifices. Naseh v'Nishma, that's then. And then they hear the Aseret HaDibros. The Ramban does not like that. Why? Because the Ramban says, wait, that's out of order. Why is the Torah out sequencing it? So that's why I got this chumash, which has the 5 words a page. And the Ramban said this took place on the day of Matan Torah. So you have Matan Torah, okay, which according to the, I didn't bring it with me, which according to the Pirkei Rebbe Eliezer took 3 hours. And we don't forget there was a lot of reviving of the Jewish people going on, right? They kept dying and being brought back to life. So that's a lot of things. This was after Matan Torah. So they heard the 10 Commandments. We survived. It's good. Don't worry. And then, after that, Moshe Rabbeinu said, right, now it's time to do a covenant, shech the animals, sprinkle the blood over the Jewish people. That's when they said Na'aseh v'nishma on the rest of the Torah, okay? Which downgrades Na'aseh v'nishma a little bit. Why? Because you've already heard the Aseret HaDibros, so you know all those things, okay? You know these 7 Noachide laws. You've had other mitzvahs like Shabbos and other things. Well, Shabbos is in the Aseret HaDibros that you heard already earlier, right? According to some opinions, you may have heard the whole of Mishpatim already. So Na'aseh v'nishma is downgraded a lot, right? You always think Na'aseh v'nishma, whatever you say, Hashem, we will do. No matter what it is, we know it's not going to be too difficult for us. We know we can cope with it. We'll accept it. But you already know half the stuff. It makes it a lot easier. What more can you throw at us, God? Na'aseh v'nishma, whatever you have, Shabbos and all this stuff already, we can handle all of that. We'll handle anything else. It sort of downgrades the potency of the Na'aseh v'nishma. So again, there was huge debates as to when these parshas took place. So let's have a look inside. Ooh. Okay. So you think you look at the parsha and you think it's just mitzvahs, but which is hard enough to understand. But there's a lot of controversy here. So let's have a look at the Ramban when I can locate it. Vel Moshe Omar. Where is it? Here we go. Parsha zu koydem aseret hadibros ba'aba nisan nemru lo. Lashon Rashi. Rashi, like I said, did I say the 5th? I think I said the 5th. The 4th. Said that all this parsha of doing the covenant, sprinkling the blood, Na'aseh v'nishma, all happened on the 4th day of Sivan, before Matan Torah. So that upgrades the Na'aseh v'nishma. Whoa, you haven't even heard the 10 Commandments yet. So already, whatever you tell us God will do, right, it has a potency. So that's what we just explained, Rashi. V'yom Hashem al Moshe alei alei horaveh yeshom la'acha Matan Torah nom l'kein. But he says no, that this is after Matan Torah. Ve'einat rat. And that Moshe Rabbeinu then went up the mountain for the 40 days after Matan Torah. So that's as we just explained. However, says the Ramban, v'oiksiv v'yova Moshe v'yisapel l'abas kol tovei Hashem v'es ha-mishpatim shehem ha-mishpatim he'elo kesuvim lemalo shenema behem ve'ela ha-mishpatim asher tosim b'fneihem. So again, he's saying that the Parshas Mishpatim was on just after Matan Torah, before Moshe Rabbeinu went up. So the Aseret HaDibros, the doing the covenants, that was all before Matan Torah, day 4 of the month. But Mishpatim was on the same day as Matan Torah, so that's the 6th or the 7th. The Gemara says was pushed off a day. But the Ramban doesn't like any of that, and we're going to hear what he says. So he says, Ki acha Matan Torah miyad, straight away, as soon as Matan Torah had finished. We can breathe. We're alive. We're good. Don't worry. We survived. Just miyad boy bayoim. As soon as Matan Torah finished, that's the Parsha immediately following Matan Torah, right? Which is always a strange Parsha. Don't make gods of gold and silver. Straight away, Matan Torah is finished. We've all heard it. Hashem says, Moshe, come here. Tells him this. Okay? Then, after that, that he tells him, careful avodah zarah. Then v'tziva oisoi ve'ela hamishpatim. Then Hashem commanded Moshe, and Moshe alone, the parsha of ve'ela hamishpatim on the day of Matan Torah. So all of Klal Yisrael are, hullabaloo of noise, schmoozing. Oh, that was great. Oh, wow, you see those pyrotechnics. Woohoo! Wow, what did you think of that? Right? You got a blog about it, right? Put it on social media. What we saw, right? While all that's going on, Moshe Rabbeinu is getting told parshas Mishpatim. After then, go now and tell them again on the day. So, come back, everybody. You think you're finished? Come. We've got some more mitzvahs now. And tells them, Mishpatim. Then afterwards, you come up to me and you stay here for 40 days. Right. And then, V'hinei Moshe kosa b'yom hahu, and Moshe wrote it on that day. Chukim u'mishpatim v'toros, all the mitzvos and laws. V'hishkim abokim imachos, he got up the next day, and then went up the mountain for 40 days. Right, so again, you see, there's a big difference. According to Rashi, quoting from the Gemaras and the Medrash, all this took place, not Parshas Mishpatim, but the Naaseh v'Nishma was before Matan Torah, before the giving of the Torah. This sprinkling of the blood over the Jewish people was before Matan Torah. And according to the Ramban and the Ibn Ezra, it was after Matan Torah. Oh, did I say the fifth? And then I said, I see Rashi says the fourth. I was right. There are opinions that say it was the fifth as well. The Mechilta says, yes, so we have three opinions. Either it was day 4, or it was day 5, but both before Matan Torah, or according to the Ramban, it was on the day of Matan Torah itself. Now, it's interesting, because does it say Moshe Rabbeinu actually told them these laws? It says, these are the mitzvahs that you should tell them, right? So, of course, Moshe Rabbeinu has to tell the Jewish people. But I'm just thinking off the top of my head, does it say he actually told them then, there, and then? Maybe he told them when he came back after the Yom Kippur. Does it say he told them? Right? But doesn't, right? There's all the mitzvahs. Yes. So it says he went and he told them all the Mishpatim, which presumably means all the Parshas Mishpatim. Okay. So now the question you're going to ask me is, if you're going to tell me that this whole Parsha that Moshe went up and gave the Naaseh v'Nishma and all this stuff was before Matan Torah, they hadn't learned Parshas Mishpatim yet. So what are the Mishpatim in this Parsha that's mentioned? So then Rashi comes to say, Sheva mitzvahs nishtavu b'nei Noach. He's repeating the 7 mitzvahs. Shabbos, kibbud v'eim, the mitzvah of Shabbos, mitzvah kibbud v'eim, Parah Aduma, and the red heifer to get pure. V'dinim shenit lehem b'morah. So there's a huge discrepancy. You think it's just enough now to discuss the mitzvahs. No, there's a huge debate. When did all of this take place? Right? It's all up in the air. 4th, 5th, afterwards. Which mishpatim? This mishpatim, that mishpatim. There's so much here to try and understand when it was, how it was, and when did they say Naaseh v'Nishma? And it makes a huge difference, because we think of Naaseh v'Nishma as this huge seismic moment, right? You get this idea of Kofa Hashem Aleim Har Kegigis, right? We have this idea that Hashem, the Gemara says, lifted up Har Sinai over them like a barrel, and they said, Naaseh v'Nishma, don't worry, okay? Now, if this is before Matan Torah, is one thing, and if after Matan Torah, it means a whole different thing. You've already heard the Torah. So you're doing a bris, a covenant, after you've heard the Torah. Now, maybe you'll say that makes more sense. I've heard a little bit of it, because you'll tell me I made a bris, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. Yes, I said a bris, I said I'll do it, but I don't really know what was in store. I didn't really read the contract properly. I'm not really an expert what's going on. But if you say it was afterwards, I've heard the mitzvah Shabbos, I've heard the Zorah, honoring your parents, don't steal, don't kill, the main stuff, right? Then it's much easier. Okay, I know what I'm getting into. I know. I'm giving it more meaningful, more consensual, because I already had a taster of it. Then again, so that's one controversy that we've just dipped our toes in. There's another controversy as to, did the Jewish people do the right thing by looking at Hashem or not looking at Hashem? Again, huge difference. So what does the pasuk say? Moshe went up, Aaron went up the mountain. Okay? So that seems simple, that when did they go up the mountain? To hear Matan Torah. But no, some people say no. Moshe Rabbeinu was not on the mountain for Matan Torah, he was down below. Nobody was on the mountain. So some people say these people were on the mountain. When you're in school, you have the picture of Har Sinai with all the Jews at the bottom boarded. You have a picture of Moshe about halfway up, right? You have the picture of Aaron a bit further down and the other Ziknei Yisrael at different levels. But according to some opinions, no, that was only after Matan Torah they went up the mountain at different levels to hear Mishpatim and other things. But during Matan Torah, everybody was down at the bottom. So you think of it being an event that everybody agrees on. But again, there was so much difference of opinion. And then again, Vayiru, they saw Eis Elehei Yisrael, the God of Yisrael, V'sachas Raglov, and beneath Hashem's feet, Masay livnas asape was like a beautiful blue stone. Right, that's what they saw, this beautiful appearance, whatever. But to the young boys, they didn't send out their hands. They saw Hashem, they ate and they drank. So is this a good thing or is this a bad thing? According to some people say they were allowed to look, and Vayochlu Vayishtu was, they were good, they were on the right level, they could have seen it. Some people say just the opposite. Lo Sholach Yoda, really Hashem should have killed them. Lo Sholach Yoda, Hashem decided, I'm not going to ruin Matan Torah with people dying. Because really, Vayechzu Elohim, they were wrong for looking at Hashem. They shouldn't have seen it, should have closed their eyes. And again, Vayochlu Vayishtu, you think that's quite simple. Vayochlu Vayishtu, they ate and they drank. We just said they had a big party. Got to have a siyum when you finish the Gemara, right? So they have what? She makes him. So of course, Har Sinai, you got to have a big kiddush. We're Jews. You have Har Sinai, you've just done all these sacrifices. Of course there was a big party. Vayochlu Vayishtu, they were rejoicing, they were drinking. That's what you think is quite simple. But not everything is as simple as it seems. Because there are opinions that say, as if, here, even the uncles translated in, eat and drink literally. With Karbuneha and Diskablu Barava, and they were happy that Hashem accepted the Karbonos, Ke'ilu Achlin V'Shas, and they were so happy as if they ate and they drank. Now, do you remember before Rosh Hashanah, we did a 2-part series about eating and the connection between Yiddishkeit and eating. Do you remember that? And we had that book of all the different foods, and we said the idea is you've got to get your body and soul aligned. So when you're giving good stuff to your body, and your body is happy, and your body is feeling great, then your soul can be happy. So that's why there's so much food that's connected. Food, we also said, becomes part of you, a whole sort of thing. So that's, again, this metaphor over here. They didn't need to physically eat and drink, according to this opinion. Why? Because they saw godliness in its raw form, if that's a good word to use. I didn't even know. Right? They saw ruchnias and godliness. Their soul saw God in their raw form. So they didn't need to eat and drink to be happy, because that's the true happiness. That's the happiness of Olam Haba. When you get up in the next world, there's no eating and drinking. Why? Because we don't need eating and drinking, right? Either we do have body, because we don't have the same sort of bodies, we don't need it, it's just our souls enjoying it different. So even the eating and drinking, some people say, yeah, of course, they ate and drank, that was the right thing to do. Some people say, no, it was the wrong thing to do. That's why they all died later with various different problems. And some say, no, as if they ate and they drank. So there was so much debate that is in this week's Parsha, that leaving aside all the mitzvahs, of course, which again, there's huge debates as to these halachos of the mitzvahs, but even in the understanding of some of these basic things. But the question then you have to ask yourself is, according to the Ramban, it's very simple. All of this happened after Matan Torah, so it all flows the same way. But according to the opinions, that was the 4th or the 5th or whatever. Why on earth do we split up the biggest seismic event that took place in Jewish history, or human history, Matan Torah? Why do we break it up? Just tell us the whole thing, chronological order, then finished. Why do we have to have all this day, that day, maybe a different day, another day? So, of course, there are many pshatim in this, but I want to say something based on some of the answers, and based on the reason we know there's no date given as to when the Torah was given. We have approximate, we know it was sometime around the beginning of Sivan, because it says B'chodesh Shlishi, the 3rd day of Sivan, and if you count the day, no, but Yom Tov of Shavuos says nothing that is connected to the Torah. It says nothing about it being connected to the Torah. It's a Yom Tov where you could bring the Bikurim, it's a Yom Tov you brought the special carbon, the special animal, and the wheat, you bring the first wheat, but it doesn't say anything that it's connected to the Torah, the giving of the Torah. So why are we splitting up the giving of the Torah like this? And I want to share a couple of thoughts with you, maybe some inspirational thoughts, and so on and so forth. And that is, Torah comes in many stages. Torah comes in many forms. Torah comes in many different levels. And perhaps a good metaphor is when you start something. Let's say you get married, okay? So you meet a woman, you meet your spouse, you fall in love, and you get married, you're also happy, you're so excited. It's great. Sorry, what? Get married and then you fall in love. Yes, that my father always used to say that, quoting from the Pasuk by Yitzchak. First it says Yitzchak married Rivka and then he loved her. Right. Or according to, what's his name now? from Gateshead, who wrote the book about love. He says, you don't love the person, you love yourself. He said, if you really loved fish, you wouldn't eat fish. I love fish. Don't kill them. Don't eat them. You love yourself eating fish. So it's all about how it makes you feel. It's all a selfish thing. Anyway. Huh?
Nothing.
Anyway, okay. But you've been married for many years, right? The love that you feel after many years is not is a more deeper love, perhaps you could say, if things are going on the right trajectory, than when you first met, right? When you first met, even when you first got married, there's a connection, there's a bond, and so on. But the love grows over time, right? And so on. In the Goyish world, as we know, we have this idea of renewing vows, right? We don't have that concept in Yiddish marriage. But what's one of the ideas of renewing vows? Yeah, I love you, and we got married, but now I feel so much more intense love for you that I want to do it again, right? You know, for the people who have good marriages. So the same thing here. You start learning Torah, you accept the Torah, you learn it, yeah. But sometimes, right, when you're in school, it's difficult, right? And when you get older, you feel more sweetness, right? You feel more connected to it when you hit 40, okay? So you know the Gemara says you don't really fully appreciate teachings until 40. Some people think it's when you hit 40. Technically, it is 40 years after you first learn it. So if you're only 5 when you start learning, it's 45. And then what we learn when you're 10, you really appreciate 50. But again, you appreciate, as you get older, you get smarter, you review things again, and you think, oh yeah, that's how I understand it. Oh yeah, makes sense now. Yeah, I get it, right? And even now, I just turned 40 myself, talking about 40, right? I understand differently. I will explain things in a shir differently with more understanding now than I did when I started off being a rabbi nearly 20 years ago, right? Because I'm 20 years older, 20 years more experience. So that's the same idea. Now, perhaps the Torah is telling you, it's not a one-shot event. You accept the Torah, you do the Torah, it's all good. No, Torah comes in levels. First, we have the Matan Torah. That's one section. Then we learn the Mishpatim. You've learned a bit. You've got the sweetness. Now we have a second accepting of the Torah. It's like we rededicate ourselves. Yeah, that's great. That's exactly it. Now we can appreciate it. Now we can, yeah, I'd love to take this again. And if you take it to the extreme, by Purim's story, it says, Hado kiblua b'mei Achashverosh. They re-accepted the Torah, right? There was a big lull in the Torah. Hence the destruction of the first Beis HaMikdash with all the sins they were committing and all that stuff. And then they rededicated themselves to the Torah, said, yeah, this is our connection to life and God is with us. So perhaps that's an inspirational reason, right? It's not all just a one-off event. No, you keep growing and now it's Nasa. We'll do it. Yes, we'll do it. Then you learn a little bit. Ooh, it's Nasev and Nishma. Yeah, great, bring it on. And I'm going to take in the covenant. And then Moshe goes up to Shemayim. I'm going to raise up the levels. So perhaps that's the idea, that Torah is in stages. And in fact, we know the Torah itself was given twice. It wasn't given twice in that sense. The first time was given with so much pomp and ceremony. Right? I use the example of pyrotechnics, but that's trying to belittle it a little bit, right? Noise and fanfare and it was unbelievable, right? But what happened to those luchos? What happened to that? 40 days later was perhaps the biggest collective sin that the Jewish people have done with the serving of the Egel. What that sin was, maybe we'll discuss in a couple of weeks, or that was around Purim time, so we may be doing Purim. But what is the... no, it's after Purim. Purim is... Yeah. So the biggest collective sin. And God realized, not so great. They gave it, got an Ayin Hara. So what happened? When did we get the second Luchos? When did Hashem give the Luchos again? Yom Kippur. Moshe Rabbeinu came down Yom Kippur. Do we talk about that much on Yom Kippur? Very little. There are references to it, and the Luchos, if you have eagle eyes, you will notice in some of the Piyutim, and the liturgical poems that we say, you will notice it talks about it, but there's very little emphasis, right, on the giving of the second Luchos. There's very little emphasis on re-accepting the Torah. It's still a hate, like swept under the carpet, if that's not the right word to use. Quiet, just get it in, sneak it in unnoticed, you sneak. So it's as if Hashem is saying, even I made a mistake. The Gemara says Hashem realized he got 9 horror. And it was just too much. It was too crazy. So now I'm going to calm it down a little bit and just give it, just take it, start going and accepting. And maybe that's also a lesson for us here. The two sets, Matan Torah is separated, Parshas Yisro, Parshas Mishpatim, and that's the two Torahs that we got. First Torah Luchos and the second Torah Luchos. And what's the message of that? Is that sometimes people think, I'm going to start, I'm going to make a big thing, going to start, I'm going to make a big spread, I'm going to put it on social media, I'm starting this, I'm doing that. Sometimes that's not the right way to go. Just do it. Nike style, right? Just do it, right? That's their logo. Just do it. Start a little bit, you learn, even if it's no good, you don't understand it, you do a little bit, just go, get the wheels moving and moving and moving, and then eventually you'll come to the situation where you'll understand Torah and Nasev and Nishma, and that's again this idea, the second giving of the Torah, right? After all the pyrotech, just do it. Just start. Don't make big waves. I'm going to do it. Oh yeah, it's going to be great to say, And I think that's true with a lot of areas in life, right? You make a big spread, you make a big thing about it. And I'm not just talking about ayin horrors and all this sort of stuff that comes into play and all these sort of things, but you make a big splash, a big spread, and so on. Sometimes it's better to start stille hate, quietly, and then before everyone looks around, I've already been learning Daf Yomi now for a year. Excuse me, or whatever it is that you're doing. So maybe that's also a lesson in this. But also, the first set of luchos, the Gemara says, the Jewish people, posku su hamosel. That means when, before Adam sinned, there was a Yetzer Hara, but it wasn't internal, it was external. And then when he ate from the Yetzer Das, he have, right, that we're desperate for, all that stuff comes from within. Oh, I desire this, this looks nice, I want to do this. That Adam Rishon didn't have. It was all outside. And then when he ate the Yetzer Das, the tree of knowledge, it internalized it, and then we got desires and so on and so forth. So the Gemara says that after the first set of luchos, poskus amos, and the same sort of thing. Those desires, because they saw God in all His. The whole point of this work, right? They saw it. They saw God, godliness, everything. We said they saw it. So they didn't have desires and things anymore. But what did that create? That we know in this world, zeh also like Him. Hashem, everything has to be opposite, balance, equilibrium. You saw God. I need to balance the books. And that's why they were tested with this egel. But what was the test of the egel? The egel didn't come from within. Adam Rishon doing the sin of the Yetzer Das wasn't a desire, I want to eat this fruit. No. It was a intellectual sin. What does that mean? It wasn't a sin of desire. It was an intellectual sin. I think that if I eat this, I'll be like God. I'll be able to, right? They made a whole cheshbon why it's right. The same with the Jewish people. Wait, Moshe Rabbeinu's dead. We need a leader. We need somebody. We can't do it on our own. God must want this. God. So that's what happens, right? Hashem has to equal out. You start with such a big problem. There's always going to be because zelu umazeh oselekim. So then Hashem realized, right? So the next time I got to do stiller hate to get rid of the Yetzer Hara. So you do it quietly. Just give you the luchos, don't make a big thing about it, don't raise up their level so high. I'm not saying you shouldn't become, but now anyway. Oh, it's back. So it's something to bear in mind. So some of the takeaways from Parshas Mishpatim, besides for all the mitzvahs and all this sort of stuff, is that sometimes just do it. Like the 2 times the Torah, it's split, it's given over. Sometimes you just have to learn, get to know things, right? And then you will, you'll know how to do it. You'll feel the sweetness of the Torah. You'll feel the sweetness of Yiddishkeit. I want to end off with saying that a lot of people may be thinking, or the 2 people watching and the 2 people here, may be thinking that this week is Parsha Shekalim, because it's Shabbos, Rosh Chodesh, we're benching Rosh Chodesh Adar. And usually when we say Rosh Chodesh benching for Adar, it is Parsha Shekalim. But it's not. Why? Oh, Parsha Shekalim, for those, just to explain. So we know we have 4 extra Parshios every year. Shekalim, where we read about giving the Machzis HaShekel. We always do that before Adar. We have Parsha Zachar, we have Parsha's Parah, and Parsha's HaChodesh. We take an extra Torah and we lay. So usually the week before Rosh Chodesh is always Parsha Shekalim. So you may be thinking, this week is Mevarach HaChodesh. However, the one exception to the rule is when Rosh Chodesh Adar is a Shabbos itself. So when Rosh Chodesh Adar is a Shabbos, we push off Shekalim till next week. And then there is no breaks between Shkalim and Zachar. So it goes Shkalim 1 week, then Zachar. Then we have a break of a week, and then it goes Para and HaChodesh. And in Yerushalayim, they'll be having 5 consecutive weeks of taking out 2 Torahs, because they have Purim on Shabbos, and therefore they take out a second Torah to read the Purim laning. So they have 5 consecutive weeks of 2 Torahs. Next week, of course, we'll be taking out 3 Torahs, because it's Rosh Chodesh, and it's Parsha Shkolim, and it's Shabbos, so you have 3 Torahs. So it is not Parsha Shkolim this week. Just thought I'd mention that. Have a wonderful week, everybody. Right, let's remember who cares. Are we ready to stop streaming?